guys, it's Cecile. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you guys who don't know me, I'm a freshman at Brown University, double majoring in biology and history while pursuing a pre-med track. And I basically made this channel to share with you guys the advice that I wish I'd known in high school while I was applying to college and scholarships and basically doing everything that kind of stressed me out during those 4 years. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure to subscribe down below, leave a comment on this video, leave a like, and hit that bell to get notified every single time I post. Alrighty, so a couple weeks ago, or maybe like 2 months ago, I made a video where I did kind of like a question and answers video with brown freshmen just like myself, and it actually did really well, and I think a lot of people like contacted me and told me that it was really useful. So I thought that I would actually end up doing that exact same video, but with international students, since I do know a lot of you guys are international students and you'd love to see things from that point of view. So today I have 9 different international students from 9 different countries that are going to be speaking to you guys about their experience applying to college and Brown in general as international students. And yeah, since I know a lot of you guys got your decisions this week, I thought this would be really useful for those of you guys who are thinking whether to apply to Brown regular decision, or those of you guys who actually got in as international students and you're kind of thinking about your next steps and thinking about like if you have to go through the same things that other people have to go through and just trying to find your community. So yeah, I hope this is really helpful, and let's get on with the video. So the very first question I have for everyone is, what is your name and where are you from? And for me, if I were to answer this question, I would basically say, my name's Cecile and I'm from Toledo, Ohio.
Hi, my name's Aysha. I'm from Baku, Azerbaijan.
My name is Eva Azazoglu and I live in Vienna in Austria, but I went to boarding school in the UK for high school.
Hi, my name is Swetabh and I'm from New Delhi in India.
Hi, my name is Emma Amsalam and I'm from Madrid, Spain.
Hi, my name is Laura David and I am from Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Hi guys, my name is Ahmed and I was born and raised in Sudan, a country in North Africa.
Hi, I'm Nadya. I'm from Singapore.
I'm Mathilda and I'm from Berlin, Germany.
Hello everyone, my name is Roza and I'm from Diyarbakir, which is a city located in southeastern Turkey, very close to the border with Syria and Iraq. However, before the pandemic has started, I had been living in Armenia, attending an international boarding school there for 2 years.
My next question is, what are you majoring in or thinking of majoring in? And at Brown, we actually call them concentrations. So I guess, what are you concentrating in?
I'm planning on majoring or concentrating, as we say in Brown, in environmental engineering and international and public affairs.
I'm thinking of studying computational biology and economics, but I might end up choosing either one or going with something completely different.
So I'm planning to do a double concentration in history and international and public affairs, which is basically the equivalent of international relations at most other schools.
I plan to major in psychology or maybe health and human biology, but both will be on the pre-med track.
Okay, so I'm probably going to concentrate in math and computer science, but I'm also interested in stuff like modern culture and media and maybe even philosophy and linguistics.
So for now, I'm thinking about majoring in education and political science because I'm very passionate about using education as a mechanism to create social change. However, I'm also very interested in history, psychology, and some other fields that I will get to explore more thanks to the open curriculum.
I'm currently undecided, but I'm considering a concentration in the social sciences like international and public affairs, history, or economics.
I'm looking to concentrate in mechanical engineering while using the open curriculum to discover other topics, including politics, cosmology, and astrophysics.
I think I want to go with the international and public affairs concentration on the policy track, but I don't know yet. We'll see, I guess.
My third question is, what are some of the difficulties you faced while applying to college?
There were quite a few difficulties I faced during the application process, especially because I didn't grow up with the awareness that I will be applying to the universities abroad, which not only have very different application processes, but also very different expectancies from their applicants than what is present in Turkey. I would say the most challenging part of applying to a university in the United States was definitely the financial aid application for a number of reasons. For example, the financial system in Turkey is very different than the United States. Moreover, because my parents have almost no knowledge about the application and are not comfortable with English, I had to do the whole financial aid application and conduct the process that followed it on my own, meaning that I had to fill the forms and collect the documents without having experience.
2019 was a year in which Sudan was going through a major revolution, and we were struggling to transition from a dictatorship to a democratic state. And a lot of people had to sacrifice their lives for that to happen. So I found it really hard to concentrate on school and on college applications while a lot of people were out there dying and risking their lives.
Something I really struggled with when applying to the US was definitely trying to speculate on what the admissions officers wanted to hear from you. And I think throughout the application process, I kind of learned that it wasn't about what they wanted to hear, it was about what you wanted to say about yourself and how you wanted to convey yourself in your application. And that took a lot of time to realize, so I ended up rewriting a lot of essays and having to rework a lot of the parts of my application. So I think definitely that's something to realize early on, just that it's not about what they want to hear, it's about what you want to say.
I have been very fortunate that I did not really lack resources much and I didn't face any significant barriers, so I definitely acknowledge that privilege. I basically had to relearn math for the SAT just because it's very different from the type of math we learn in Germany. So that was kind of a bummer. And I mean, Common App essays were very different from essays I experienced writing in high school, but I guess that's kind of the same for everybody, so.
So first of all, I'm luckier than most international students because I didn't apply for financial aid, and I'm very thankful to my parents for that, but I know that can be a huge issue. But I still had one major problem, which is kind of niche, but also might be useful to hear. Some countries like mine, like India for example, have huge centralized one-time exams that pretty much solely determine whether or not you end up in a good school. So in India, this is called the Joint Engineering Examination. I mean, that's one of the many exams actually. But yeah, there are enormous, almost factory-like coaching institutions to prepare students for these exams. And I wasn't very sure about my application process. Like, I didn't know whether I was going to end up in the US or in India. And since I didn't have a huge support structure of people to talk to during the application process, and I'll come back to that later, I kind of spent a lot of time in these institutions. So a lot of 10th grade and almost the entirety of 11th grade, which meant I missed out on a bunch of opportunities. Like, I did a lot more in 12th grade than I did in 11th, which is not necessarily a good thing. However, eventually I managed to take the leap and get out of these, like when 12th grade began. And I did not regret that decision at all, obviously. So I understand it might be harder for other students to do depending on their backgrounds. But one thing that might help is take exams that get you into some college in your home country early, like I did. I took the KVBY, for example. But either way, it was definitely a challenge.
So what I found hard while applying was the whole process, really, because I went to a French school, so they didn't really prepare us to apply to the US, but mostly to apply to France and Spain, because I live in Spain. So I had to take classes apart from school to study for the SAT. Then I had to write all the essays while I had a lot of tests at school, which was kind of a challenge because senior year in the French system is the most intense one. Writing all the essays was a challenge because all colleges give you different prompts, so you really have to personalize every essay because that's really what they want, right? To see who you are. Another difficulty while applying was the timeline. I thought I started early enough to write my essays, but I didn't. So I found myself writing an essay for a school that I wanted to apply to the day before the deadline, which wasn't ideal. Start your essays as soon as possible. Start thinking about all the prompts because you really want to get it done the soonest.
I was very lucky to have an amazing support system for my applications in and outside of school. But I recognize that I went into the college application process with the support system that many other international applicants don't get. But there were still some things that I found difficult in the application process, mostly because the system in the US is very different from the UK and Europe. And so the application process was a bit unusual for me. So for example, extracurricular activities are really important to colleges in the US. And American high school students know very early on that they need to focus on their extracurricular activities as well as their academics to get into a good college. But from my background, this was very different because in Austria and in the UK, extracurriculars are mostly just done for fun or to relax. And I didn't really realize until my junior year of high school that I really had to start focusing on my extracurriculars if I wanted to be a competitive candidate. It's not that I didn't do anything before, it's just that I didn't really see it as a priority as opposed to my academics. Another thing that I found quite difficult during the application process is writing my application essays. I found it really strange that universities wanted to learn about me as a person in this essay outside of my academics. And English isn't my first language, so I find creative writing pretty hard anyway. And I'd never written an essay like that before, so the first draft of my Common App essay was really horrible and it was way too academic and formal, and it took me a lot of effort to develop a good style for the essay, but even by the end I wasn't really that happy with my application essays.
In terms of the difficulties I had when applying to Brown from outside the US, I think it was mostly just trying to figure out how to navigate the process, because we didn't have like SAT tutoring built into our curriculum. It wasn't something that our guidance counselors talked about from, middle school on. It was more something we heard about around freshman year, but mostly in like sophomore, junior, senior year. So I think it was just figuring out, when to start the process, how to keep on top of your extracurriculars, SATs, all of that stuff. On your own time instead of in school, and also just adjusting to the fact that the US admissions process was way more involved than the Canadian admissions process. I think that was probably hard.
I guess the first thing is that my high school and a lot of high schools in Singapore follow a January to December academic calendar, which means we take our big exams, so the APs or the IB, in November instead of May, which is what most people in the US take, when most people in the US would take them. And so that means we have to jump straight from doing big exams to writing our essays and putting our applications together to hit the January 1st Common App deadline, which is very stressful to be doing it one after the other because you don't get a break. I think another challenge that we face coming from Asia, where not as many people are familiar with the US college systems, is that there are some colleges that might be perceived as very prestigious in the States, like liberal arts colleges or some of the non-Stanford, MIT, or Ivy League top 20s that aren't as recognized or viewed as prestigious in this part of the world. And so that kind of adds another layer of pressure when you're applying.
Now for my fourth question, do people from your country or people you know in general apply to the US for college a lot?
Not from Austria. I don't actually know anyone from Austria who's applied to university in the US, and most people don't really know anything about the American college system either, so they were really surprised and found it fascinating when I told them I'd be going to university in the US. And the big reason for me going to boarding school in the UK was actually so that I'd have more support when applying to university in English-speaking countries. And in my school in the UK, there were quite a lot of people applying to university in the US, so that definitely helped me a lot in the process. But I also know that this isn't a universal thing in the UK. I actually switched schools between my sophomore and junior years of high school. And in my previous school, there were much fewer people applying to the US. And the amount of support and help that you get during the application process also depends on how many people from your school are applying. So I was definitely very lucky in that sense. And I don't think I would have been able to apply and get into a good college in the US if I had stayed in Austria, because I would have had a lot fewer resources available to me during the application process.
No, actually, a lot of people from my country go for Europe, mainly the United Kingdom, because most of us are very attached to our families and wouldn't want to attend institutions at very distant countries.
So I live in Spain, and I know that a lot of people usually stay in Spain for university. And well, I went to a French school, so a lot of people went to France and others stayed in Spain. And then also some went to England or even Switzerland. But from my school, we were only 3 to go to the US, and it's 300 people in a grade, so it's not a lot of people.
Because, Canada is so close to the US, I've known a lot of people who've crossed over for school. So I was lucky enough to know even kids at my own school who went to Brown in the last few years, which was really, really nice.
Okay, so people from my country definitely. Like India is huge, and I'm aware of a bunch of schools that send a lot of students to the US every year, especially larger international schools, for example. But in terms of my own, I guess there are 2 to 4 students that apply to the US every year from my school out of a class of what's generally like 175 students, and that's not a lot, clearly.
I don't think many people do apply to the US from Azerbaijan, partly because it's so far away. Obviously, people want to be closer to home, but also just because there's no prep programs or it's not really an option, I think.
Yeah, I think people do apply to the States quite often from Singapore, but I think an important thing to note is that going to the States is a lot more costly than going to the UK or studying locally or going to Australia, because the States only offers like 4 years bachelor's degrees, whereas you can get a bachelor's in like 3 years somewhere else. So therefore, to justify that like increase in cost, most people will only go if they really loved the sort of liberal arts education that the States offers, or they got into a very prestigious college.
I think there's a growing number of students applying to the US universities from Turkey, as the awareness about the possibility and the opportunities that US universities uniquely offer to their students are increasing. Also, there are now more and more schools that offer international educational programs, such as the International Baccalaureate or AP in Turkey. In the international boarding school that I have attended, in our year group of 109 people, I would say a very good amount, maybe around 70 people did apply or are planning to apply after their gap year to the universities in the US.
No, people from my high school don't generally apply to US colleges too much, so there's about 5 people in my grade going to college in the US as well. So it's pretty rare.
Next, what are some things you're worried about considering you're attending college in a completely new place and country, basically?
Singapore is hot and humid all year round because we're very near the equator. So I am a bit nervous for New England winters, but I think I'll be able to adjust. The second thing I'm nervous about is just the time zones. I'm starting remotely, so obviously that's a huge concern because I think Singapore time is like 12 or 13 hours off Eastern Standard Time. So a lot of the classes will be in the middle of the night, which I'm not looking forward to. But also, I guess when I'm on campus, like time zones will make it hard to communicate constantly with like friends and family back home. So that's something I'm a bit nervous about.
In terms of my worries about going to school in a new place, I think my biggest worry initially was like the logistics. I was sort of like, oh my god, I need, a new phone and a visa and like a new like bank card or whatever. Oh my god, like do I need to pay taxes? Do I need a social security number? Like how does this work? But the process sort of sorts itself out, and Brown is really great about helping international students with all those things. I think with COVID, the visa thing has definitely become way more of a challenge, but Brown is definitely helping us through it, as I know a lot of other schools are. So one other thing I'll say is like going to a school where you don't really know anybody and it's in a totally different area and country can be kind of daunting, but everybody at Brown has been really, really nice so far. So no complaints.
I was brought up in an Arab country and I've never been or lived in the United States, so I was kind of intimidated by the huge cultural difference between the two countries. However, during the past 6 months, I've met and befriended some of my future classmates at Brown, and they were all amazing people who learned a lot about my culture, and I learned a lot about theirs, and that definitely made me feel a lot more comfortable with the idea of spending the next 4 years of my life at Brown. So if you're an international student who wants to apply to Brown, but is kind of intimidated by the huge cultural difference between the United States and your country, don't be, because Brown has amazing people and a close-knit community that will help you get through it.
While I'm not really worried about coming to the US, I think definitely there will be a culture shock. I've lived in a Muslim country my whole life, so coming to a very globalized, I guess, place where there's people from all different places with completely different, outlooks on life. It's going to be very exciting, but I think it will be challenging at first.
I guess one of my worries of going to college in the US is kind of missing my culture, right? Because I'm going to be really far away from home, and I know the American culture is really different to the Spanish one. I'm going to miss my family, the food. But what's good is I already know other 4 students that are also from Spain. So I guess whenever we feel homesick, we'll be able to all just be together and just cry together. Another worry I have is definitely having to speak English all the time, because I'm not used to that. And sometimes I just forget the words, but I mean, it'll work out. And I think it's going to be really fun just meeting all the new people.
The weather. So I live in a place where the lowest temperatures go around 8 degrees Celsius. And knowing that I'm going to land somewhere and immediately be met with temperatures that are below freezing is kind of a slap in the face. I mean, on the flip side, I do get to see snow, which is definitely a plus. But on the more serious side, I'm kind of worried about the social aspect of things, like whether I'll be able to break out of my own bubble in terms of international stuff or Indian Zoom calls, for example. But everyone I've met so far has been absolutely incredible and so welcoming. So I'm kind of optimistic about that.
So, even though internationals form a significant portion of Brown's population, people from the US are still the majority. Therefore, I'm worried that whenever we are having a conversation, are in a class, or doing an activity, the context will by default become the US, meaning that I will be more likely to not have the same experiences, knowledge, or understanding, which is not necessarily something bad, but it is definitely different, especially considering that I have spent the last 2 years of my life living in a school that almost didn't have any sort of majority. But I must say that I'm also very excited because I think there will be a lot of new things that I will.
Mostly I'm just worried about coronavirus, because if there's some sort of health emergency, it could be kind of hard to get home, especially in spring semester. Then also culture shock, because I am half American, but y'all do be kind of weird sometimes, so I guess we'll see about that. And yeah, mostly I'm just really excited to get on campus finally, though.
There are 2 main things I'm worried about. Firstly, it's definitely going to be an adjustment to move so far away from my family. I'm used to living in dorms and being in a different country from boarding school, but the UK was still different in that it wasn't too far away from Austria, because you could still reach it by car from Austria if you really wanted to, and it was in a similar time zone, so it didn't feel that far away. But moving to a different continent will definitely be intimidating. And the second thing is that I've never lived in the US before, so I'm a bit worried about culture shock and potentially not fitting in or not being able to adapt to a different culture and lifestyle.
And lastly, why did you choose Brown?
Okay, so I got into Brown off the wait list, but I almost applied early decision because I was kind of in love with the school from the get-go. I mean, I love the idea of the open curriculum, of course. Like, I'm into math and computer science, but pop culture is an enormous part of my identity. And being able to explore that along with stuff like I'm not necessarily as familiar with, like philosophy, linguistics, and even literature, is something I've been looking forward to for a long time. Beyond that, I also didn't want to go anywhere where the people were super competitive. For example, like, I'm just not that kind of person. So the fact that Brown is known for its collaborative culture, its academic freedom, social awareness, and incredible teaching, like, kind of solidified it as my top choice.
My answers are probably really repetitive from what you've heard from other people, but seriously, firstly, the community. I've heard that Brown's community is really warm, welcoming, and wholesome, and everyone here is really nice. That was the perception that I had of Brown's community before I got in, and honestly, like meeting people even online, I'd say that's definitely true. I've met a lot of really cool, really nice and genuine people. The second reason why I chose Brown is because of the curriculum. Again, a really like ran out of the mill answer, but it's true. Like honestly, the flexibility of the open curriculum is incredible, and it makes it very easy to like double major or like explore different concentrations, which I think gives you a level of flexibility that other universities just can't match. Lastly, I think the location is pretty good. It's a nice like sweet spot. It's not right smack in the middle of the city, but it's also not too secluded. And I guess coming from like a city myself, I don't really want to be in a overly remote location. So Brown kind of juggles those two pretty well for me.
There are a lot of reasons why I chose Brown. However, I would say two of the most important reasons for me were the community and the one-of-a-kind academic approach that Brown has to offer. I really appreciate how Brown has a very rigorous learning environment that is not cutthroat. Members of Brown community are very understanding, supportive, and caring of each other. Moreover, I really value how there is an opportunity to extend the Brown community beyond the walls of campus and include people of Providence. Also, as a person who have variety of interests but never had the chance to explore them truly in academic spaces, I felt like the open curriculum was a life-changing experience, and I do think it is.
I picked Brown because I applied ED, so I didn't really have another choice in the end. No, actually, I love the community so much. I love the way the courses sounded. They really appealed to me, so I recommend if you're thinking about applying to just check out the course descriptions in CAB and see how you feel about them, I guess. I loved campus when I visited. I don't know, I just loved everything about it, I guess.
Brown has been my first choice since I was in 6th grade, I think, because I read all these articles about how the students there were the happiest and how it's so accepting and wonderful, and I just want to be part of that community. So that's definitely a big part of the reason why I wanted to apply and wanted to go to Brown. And also, obviously, the open curriculum. I'm sure that everyone in the video will kind of mention it. I wanted to explore a bunch of kind of disciplines while also being pre-med. I'm taking Middle Eastern Studies next semester, which I'm so excited about, and I think I wouldn't have been able to kind of squeeze that into my schedule with core classes in other schools. So definitely the open curriculum and the atmosphere that Brown provides are the reasons that I kind of had it at the top of my list.
I chose Brown because of the open curriculum. The reason I wanted to go to university in the US in the first place was because I wanted to be able to explore many different subjects and not just be restricted to one. I love the idea of liberal arts and interdisciplinary learning, and I found that Brown really embodied this idea of learning for the sake of learning that I found really appealing. And also I can see myself mostly majoring in the social sciences, but I also love literature, music, languages, and chemistry, and I could also imagine that I'd be double majoring in two completely different subjects. And in a lot of colleges where there are a lot of different requirements, it might be difficult for me to double major and also so have space to explore new subjects that I find interesting and just for fun. And so I felt that Brown was probably the best fit for me in terms of being able to explore loads of different subjects academically.
Well, there are so many reasons. Of course, the open curriculum is an amazing factor. And, well, in France or Spain or Europe in general, you go to a university for a specific career, for a specific major, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do because I loved engineering, I loved science, but I also love political science, public affairs, international relations. So I thought I have to go to the US. That's the only place where I'll be able to really explore my passions. And I went to visit Brown last October, and this might sound corny, but I fell in love with the campus. It was amazing. The the people, the vibrant atmosphere, how everyone was so nice, so happy to be there, the beautiful campus. I just loved it, and I thought, wow, I want to study here. I want to spend the next 4 years of my life here at Brown. And I applied to Brown, and I got waitlisted. But I did everything I could to get off the wait list. I sent an essay, and then I saw that I still didn't get an answer, so I sent a video essay, and then I got in. So I guess it's really important, if you're sure of something, just go with it. Just insist, just perseverate. Really don't give up. Don't give up until it's really over.
Living through periods of political instability and ethnic wars in Sudan has inspired me to develop new interests in areas such as politics and public speaking. And I believe that Brown's open curriculum would not just restrict me to engineering, but would provide the opportunity to dive deeper into those interests. Furthermore, I know this sounds weird, but I was very comfortable just looking at the Brown logo and the colors, and something inside me told me that Brown is the place to be for the next 4 years. And you know what they say, the heart wants what it wants.
Honestly, at first, I was interested in Brown because of the open curriculum. I'd never heard of anything like it, but then it more became about the vibe. The people just seemed really, really nice. Everyone seemed really relaxed. It didn't really seem to have a competitive atmosphere. Also, the extracurricular opportunities and the academic opportunities were just, crazy. And they had so many things I wanted, and the culture just seemed really aligned with, who I am. And honestly, all of that has turned out to be true. Like, Brown was my top choice school, and I applied early decision, and I haven't regretted it for a single day since then. So if you are a senior, junior, sophomore, freshman, even younger than that, like whatever, I would seriously, I would seriously tell you to consider applying to Brown. It is great. It has been the best school and university experience.
Alright, so that's the end of this video. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions for the people that were in this video, I've linked their Instagrams down below in the description, so feel free to contact them if you do have any questions related to their experience or just things in general. So once again, thank you for watching and supporting my channel in general, and I will see you guys soon. Honestly, I don't know if it's gonna be next week since I'm really busy trying to figure out what I'm gonna pack and finally starting to shop and everything, but I will see you guys as soon as I post my next video. Thank you.